6:38 p.m. on October 8th, 2025. This is the Westchester Borough Smart Growth Committee meeting. I'm Nicole Shimoni, the chair of the committee, and I'm here with Bernie Flynn and Lisa Dorsey. Any announcements? Okay. Any comments, suggestions, petitions by residents, taxpayers, and visitors in attendance regarding items not on the agenda? All right, let's move on to the director's report.
Good morning, everybody. Good evening. It's been a long day. I just wanted to start off a little bit before I do my directors to mention that October is National Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Month. And I want to take a moment and show my gratitude to Wendy, Keisha, Corday, Sinwell, and Paul, our code department. I've only been here for about 72 days, but I can see clearly that they have really grown and they started to improve significantly and show a lot more dedication and joy in the task of doing what they're doing. And they're making me look really good, which is a hard job. So I want to say thank you and take a little bit of time in public to say how much that we do appreciate them. Some highlights about our code enforcement report. We are down to the final 350 outstanding rental licenses. This means about almost 95% of all rental licenses are completed, which is far ahead of where we were last year. We will be taking the next month and making sure that we get as many of those last 350 done before the end of the year. The zoning hearing board will be hearing 3 appeals for October. One will be 436 North Church, which came before here last month, but was continued from last month's zoning hearing board to this one. The other 2 are 740 South Matlack Street, which will be a variance requesting relief from 112-602 P2, which is a curb separation for parking areas. This is the case study that we were using in regards to an ordinance change for this section, which would allow the zoning officer with input from public safety, emergency services, and public works to waive that requirement. So at this point, we're not looking for we're not looking to fight this one. The other one is 124 East Chestnut Street variance on rear and side yard setbacks for demolition of an old garage and construction of a 2-story garage with office over it. Also a continuation of non-conforming uses. At this point, there is a concern with the property being on the property line, the construction being on the property line. So we would request the solicitor to be involved in this. Planning Commission, there was a presentation by the borough's intern, Mikey Clemens, on a retrospective of what projects have been either completed or are in the stages of completion from our 2016 comp plan. We have approximately 40% of our proposed items either completed or in stages of being completed, which is in the top 30% of municipalities in Pennsylvania. So we're doing a good job. There's still a lot to get done. This was presented for them to think about so that when we come up to the 2026 comprehensive plan that we have to start working on, they can start looking at the things that we have not completed and move forward. Code enforcement is focusing on inspections and re-inspections. Currently, we have scheduled all the way out to the end of December, and we will be working into January here soon. So we are getting a lot of inspections done that have not been done, which is a key part of our strategy to help improve housing in the borough by maintaining the properties that we currently have so that we're not having to replace them. The building department is focusing on permits being placed in windows and approved plans being on site. We have been going to inspections and not finding permits being placed properly. So we're trying to educate our contractors and homeowners that they have to have the permits visible from the street and that we have to have approved plans on site. Prior to doing any kind of enforcement in that, we were working towards education. And are there any questions on the report?
Any questions from those in attendance? Okay. Thank you for the report. All right, we'll move on to, we're going to table old business, item A, discuss amendments to Chapter 90A Restaurants Cafe. So we will table that to next month. Next, old business B, motion to approve Smart Growth Committee meeting minutes from September 10th, 2025. Any questions? No. Any questions from anyone in attendance? No. All right, so we'll move that to work session. We'll move on to new business. Please know when we get to item C on new business, we're going to combine item C, F, and H since they are all related to Chapter 112 at the request of Aaron. So when we get to C, we'll put them all together and talk through them at one point in time. But until then, we are on item A, motion to approve final land development 210 to 214 West Washington Street, Axel Properties.
Yes, this came before Planning Commission with our zoning hearing board last month, where they were seeking relief from the building design requirements that would allow them to go to 45% of a building coverage. On the size lot in the district that they are in, it is only a 35% building coverage that's allowed. They needed to go to 45 to make the project work. Now, just as a caveat, the previous building there covered the same lot at about 88%. So we were seeing a significant reduction in the covered area, but it still was above it. The zoning hearing board did meet on that, and they did give them the relief that they requested with the condition that they tried to look as much as feasible into improving collection of rainwater more than what they had proposed originally. With that being done, they have met all the criteria and everything they needed to move forward with the plans that were already approved through the Planning Commission previously. And a resolution was provided by Tom Estes, our solicitor, to move forward with approving those final plans and getting this moving.
Applicant's engineers here. I think the plans changed slightly. I had asked Scott to get here just to make sure, since it's his plan and his application, in case they had questions, but there have been changes, and I want Scott to explain to the board the changes between the preliminary plan to what's before you for final plan approval, which necessitated them to go to the zoning hearing board.
Yes, briefly. Hello again. Aaron covered the zoning variance part, which I was going to discuss with you guys. I will add to what he said. They gave us the relief for the building coverage, and they conditioned it on us trying to capture more of the building's roof runoff for stormwater. Previously, on the preliminary plan, we were only capturing the rear half of 6 of the 8 units, and that's all we had to do to meet to be compliant with the stormwater ordinance. Since the zoning hearing board meeting, I worked with the architect, and we are now capturing all of the roof runoff from all the units and running them through our stormwater bed. And we are still within the runoff rate compliance for the borough. So we are meeting, in our opinion, the condition given to us by the zoning hearing board with improving the stormwater controls for the building. The only other main change since the last time we were here in June is we've addressed the zoning comments that we had received just prior to that meeting concerning the site distance along for the Bird's Eye Patton Alley intersection. The site distance line was going through some of the proposed stairs for the entrances on Patton. We adjusted the layout by moving the wider unit to the outside there so the steps could be further back, and we moved the setback back 1 foot so that we are now back to meeting what the preliminary plan showed for site distance along Patton Alley. The only other revisions, I think we had them here last time, were planning commission comments on the turning radius between Birdseye and Patton, and streetlights, adding streetlights along Washington that were dark sky compliant, and we are complying with those. So we've just resubmitted. We feel we're addressing all the borough professional reviews, and yeah, we're hoping to get approval on the resolution that was drafted.
And I have a question for you. So the architectural renderings that were referenced in the preliminary plan approval were prepared by Marshall Sabatini, dated April 25th, 2025. Are those still the applicable architectural? I didn't think so.
No, they are not. I don't have the final version of them yet. However, the building height calculation that we just submitted is a version of that new architectural plan. And once we have those,
Condition, yes,
Architectural renderings were.
I don't have the new renderings done yet, but condition 10 is that we will, I believe we will provide the new architectural elevation views to the planning commission for their approval and then for borough council to approve as well.
Yeah, but that we have to make, we still have to revise paragraph 10 because it references those plans. If that's not what you're substantially complying with, we need to not refer to that date and just say that you have to go back to the planning commission with those architecturals. So that first sentence would come out.
okay.
It's pretty similar to the one that you approved for preliminary plan with the comments that Scott made as far as some of the planning commission's comments were incorporated into as conditions. So that would be condition 9. Condition 13 deals with the streetlights, the very specific streetlights that they referenced in their final plans. Condition 15 was similar to what's in the preliminary plan, but we added a little bit that we want to see in the homeowner's declaration. They have from front stoops that are coming out into the right of way. That's very common in the borough. It's very common on this street. So that's obviously up to council to decide, but we had suggested that you would be okay with that, but we wanted an indemnification from the association and that would be contained within the homeowner's declaration. So that's what paragraph 15 added, as well as, I guess there's some planters that are also within the right of way.
Yes, yeah. And that was, Thomas committed to ask for those to be added to the declaration as well, the planters.
So other than that, the conditions are the same from the preliminary plan. But explain, so from the preliminary plan to the final plan, did you expand the size of the building? Is that what necessitated going and getting the variances?
Yes,
Okay.
the overhang went deeper, but we stayed compliant with the overall impervious coverage.
Okay, but it's still 8 dwelling units. It's just that
Yes.
they wanted a wider unit.
Deeper
unit.
so that he couldn't fit in everything he was trying to fit in.
Okay. So yeah, and sorry about that. We didn't realize that the MPC clock was expiring until Friday when I got in touch with Scott, which then made us quickly have to try to get this to you. So normally we would have had it done sooner. Apologize.
Does anyone have any questions? I'm just, again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think you guys have worked with us with all the feedback that you've gotten from the planning commission and also with Aaron as he's come on board and everything. And I'm very thankful for that. I'm also thankful that you guys were able to work together to find a solution so you could have 8 units versus 6 units and all of the things that you guys were able to work through. So thank you for
Sure. We
working.
appreciate
so
your
hard.
feedback and you guys working with us as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any comments from anyone? No? All right, so are we okay? Up.
Still Lisa Kearns, West Biddle Street. Just a quick question. This, from a resident, did this property have a below ground oil pit, drainage pit?
The phase 1 did not identify any underground storage. No.
Okay,
That's the environmental study that required.
right. And was there any I just want to make sure there wasn't one under there that had been, they put the floor over, because obviously they used to drain all the oil into a pit. They didn't
Yeah.
have the lifts.
Yeah, Phase one does not identify any of that, doesn't have any evidence of that.
But you will find out, I guess, when you, okay. And the other thing, again, when would demolition begin if you get approved?
The builder is not here tonight. I can't.
Oh,
answer that question.
gotcha.
I'm not. I can't answer that. I'm
Okay.
not sure.
Thank you.
Just a point of clarification, what he's talking about at phase one, it's an environmental site assessment. It's required as part of the commercial development, which goes through and runs history checks, permit checks through the state, local government, and the federal government, and is looking for any type of brownfield registration, any type of storage tanks, any type of violations from monitoring wells in the area, and a number of different other things. And none of that was shown to show any type of storage, either gas, oil, or any other type on site.
And I don't know that there were actual tanks with that process.
All right, so I think we're good for the work session, I think with the adjustment that you were saying that needs to be made. Yeah, okay, great, thank you. All right, item B, discuss amending chapter 112 Planned University Campus District, Brian Nagel and attachment, and it's related to College Arms student housing redevelopment.
Madam Chair, I have a question, not a point of order. But I-
Question.
Yeah, I have a question for the, our Director of Zoning. This is a rather unique addition to the agenda. It was pin dropped on here at the last minute, and I'm very curious of who asked to have this presentation put on, because the residents, if they weren't paying attention to the change from Friday, would not have known we had a change on Monday to the agenda. So it's very important that the public know, about this thing, because the plan is vastly instrumental to the development of the borough and the university. So I'm just very curious on why you added it.
I will answer that,
I'll
Nicole.
answer this.
I will answer that. I dropped the ball on this one in this way. Brian was given he was assured that he would be able to get onto this agenda. And if he'd sent in the documentation and the presentation that he was doing by Friday. I did receive it Friday at about 4:56. Unfortunately, I had already left for the weekend and I had a lot of things to do getting ready to move into my new apartment. So I did not check his email as to what needed to be done. So I wasn't able to do it until Monday. I came in and Kristen was very nice to call me up, say, hey, I saw this come in. We need to try to get this on if we can. And I'm going to take complete responsibility for that, because if I had looked at it on Friday, we could have given more time and had it done in a little bit better manner. So I'll ask for a little bit of grace, as I'm only been here for 72 days.
That you've been here.
And I will get better.
The reason why I'm not strongly challenging it, because it was included prior to 12 hours before the hearing of tonight. So it met the criteria. I just was very curious because I love seeing Mr. Nagel, and I wish he would have came earlier, but I just didn't know how that slipped by, because it's such a big change in the footprint of the borough. And
I could have handled it better and I will in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And I think one thing, Brian, next time, if there's something like that, try to get it to us by noon as opposed to 5 o'clock. And that way, we don't have this issue. I don't think there was ever a time frame that was given, because you've got some residents definitely in the back that are not happy right now. And they're going to come up and they're going to say how unhappy they are right now. And you're not going to see as much movement on this evening for sure, because we've got a lot of questions. They've got a lot of questions and all that good stuff.
Understood. And I would just say it was a short turnaround to begin with. But that being said, it's on for discussion only. So there's really no action other than to look at what's been submitted at this point in time. And further discussion would continue this month and into the following month. So there'll be, I'll be back. Exactly. So shall I? Good evening, Brian Nagel on behalf of the Westchester University of the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education. We submitted a draft proposed ordinance as well as a panel set, which I'll run through. And the proposal relates to the College Arms property. That property and this proposal is encompassed within the following area: Rosedale Avenue, and I'll say north of Rosedale Avenue, Sharon Alley, west of Sharon Alley, High Street, east of High Street, and Linden Street, south of Linden Street. So that's the area that we're talking about. And I think most people are familiar where the College Arms property is. The university received recommendations about what to do with this property to try to renovate. And the renovation of the property is essentially infeasible. There's serious structural issues, and renovation, you can see here in the photographs, top left, you can see what that picture shows is a twisted joist, and they have those, they believe, throughout the building, which creates the serious structural issues together with some other framing issues. All of the piping throughout the building is leaking, and there's other significant structural and other issues within the building. You can see the north building has 60 beds, which are currently offline. The south building has 15 beds, which are occupied. The east building has 22 beds, which are occupied. You can see repair costs to date, $6.5 million. Estimated cost to repair structural, mechanical, and plumbing piping in the north building only is $14.3 million. With 97 beds, the state can't spend that kind of money to get 97 beds back online with the 60 that are unoccupied in the main building. The architect had initially, can we go to the next slide, please? The architect had initially suggested a mid-rise type student housing building at this site. And our reaction was that that type of building, that size building, would not fit within the character of this location. Obviously, this is a transition from the main university campus, PUC district, across High Street. And then beyond that, if you continue to the east, is an NC2 zoning district and essentially a borough neighborhood. So what we asked the architect for something more of a townhouse scale, which is what we're presenting to you tonight for a proposed redevelopment of the site. That includes 3 buildings with 420 upperclassmen beds. It would have on-site resident life office. It would have on-site RAs, and of course, it would be policed by Westchester University Campus Police. There's existing retail space there today at the corner of High and Linden. That retail space goes all the way back and has basically a 0 setback on Sharon Alley. The proposal here would be to remove that retail and reconstruct new retail that actually fronts on High Street. So you can see that there in the purple. Can you go back to the prior slide, please? That would be approximately 7,500 square feet, essentially what's there today, but reconstructed. Outdoor cafe seating would be cleaned up there. You know, that's there today. Not as nice as we might expect. That would be souped up. You've got university administrative space proposed within the building at 7,500 square feet. And then you can go to the next slide. And then at the south end of the property, the maroon colored building that you see there, that would be a welcome center. And this project would afford the opportunity at that intersection of High and Rosedale. Everything's very tight up against that corner there at High and Rosedale. This would allow us to open up that intersection a little bit, allow more space for pedestrian flow through the site, especially for folks who are not intending to cross any of the streets there at that intersection. They'd be able to traverse through this site, whether along High Street or between the buildings, as you see here. Here you can see a perspective that shows the townhouse style. They've broken up the front two buildings. You saw a reference to the three buildings for the student housing on one of the earlier slides. They've broken that up in the front and then have a single building in the rear. Again, townhouse scale with the undulating facade to break that up and create interest. And this view is to show you that in terms of scale, it fits in to the neighborhood and provides a good transition from the main campus area across High Street. This shows you a perspective of the proposed Welcome Center. This is the corner of High and Rosedale, looking mainly north. This is coming around the corner from the side as you start to move up High Street. You see the side of the Welcome Center, and you see the first portion of the townhouse style student housing building. This is a perspective looking generally southeast down High Street. And here you can see where the building is broken up, and there's a sort of a gateway for pedestrians and a courtyard in between the buildings, with the main access for pedestrian being via High Street. This is looking north on High Street. And one of the things that this, if you go and you look at the College Arms site today, you'll see that the building really sits up 6 feet, maybe more, above the sidewalk. This allows us to bring everything down and really have buildings that relate to the sidewalk and open up that street corridor and have modern buildings, but keeping with the character of the borough and relating to the sidewalk and the streetscape. This is from closer up by Linden Street, looking back down south on High Street. And here you can start to see where you transition to the retail. This is the retail upgraded courtyard area that I was mentioning. And you can see, rather than that retail going all the way back, you can see that green fence. That's on the other side of Sharon Alley. Rather than those buildings going all the way back to the alley, allows us to open up on that side and keep the retail focused on this corner of Linden and fronting mainly on High Street. And obviously, with all of these views, it also affords an opportunity to upgrade all of the landscaping surrounding this entire site. This is a view looking in from the corner of Linden and Sharon Alley. You can see the space between the buildings, which is the courtyard for the students. And you can see the parking on the north side of the building. And then there's an access drive. Today, if you go down Sharon Alley, all of the parking just goes directly along Sharon Alley and comes out onto the alley. This provides an opportunity to have controlled access. One access point up here by Linden Street and another access point down towards Rosedale, so that you don't have traffic coming in and out all along Sharon Alley. You don't have students coming in and out along Sharon Alley. You have more of a controlled access point up here and one down by Rosedale. And then that access point leads to parking underneath of the rear building. This is another perspective further down Sharon Alley. This is up from sort of inside of Linden, looking into the parking underneath the building. This is a nighttime perspective of the courtyard between the two buildings. And then I've also included an ordinance, and as you mentioned, obviously your solicitor will review the ordinance. I don't know if you have comments on that tonight or not, but we would look forward to hearing that. The way that we've set it up is today you just have a PUC district. College Arms is not located within.
Can you explain what the PUC district is?
Yeah, essentially the PUC is just the Planned University District, and it's the district within the borough that allows all of the various university uses. Today, it encompasses the super block, the area bounded by High Street, Rosedale, New Street, and Sharpless Street. What this proposal does is create a PUC2 district, which would go across the street to the several parcels over there that make up the College Arms property and dials back the permitted uses and essentially restricts the uses within the PUC2 to something that's consistent with what you've seen here. Lower height regulations, lower impervious coverage requirements, higher green space requirements as compared to the PUC, and then sets up setbacks from each of the streets. So that's how we've proposed this. I personally think that's the best way to achieve the zoning if this is something that the borough is open to. And then I also submitted, obviously, you use a zoning chart. I submitted a zoning chart and I removed some of the uses that are permitted in the PUC1 and sort of pared down what you could do in this PUC2. Again, with the concept being to capture something that's consistent with the plan that I just reviewed for you.
All right, and any questions from you guys here so far?
No, I'll wait till.
Okay. Lisa, how about you?
No.
So yeah, I'm not going to make any comments right now yet either. I think going back to the proposed ordinance, I think it goes back to, we want to hear what the residents and attendants are also saying, so that Kristen will also hear that as well. And then we can take that back and talk to Kristen about what that means and how that could be incorporated, some of their feedback. And then we can talk some more. As you said, you will be back. So this is, thank you for right now. I'm going to open it up to the residents, which I see at least a peppering of them in here. And then you'll be able to hear their feedback as well.
And I assume I'll be able to at least get up and say a few more words before I depart this evening.
Sure. Yes, of course. Of course. And what I'm going to try to do, guys, I see I see at least 5 of you, but I'm going to try to contain it like 15, 20 minutes. So try to keep, we'll see, like, we want to hear what you have to say. And I don't know, Jim, if you're going to come up and want to say anything or what have you, but let's try to keep it tight enough so that Brian and Kristen start to hear your feedback, and then we can continue the conversation as we move forward. Does that work? Does anyone want to start the conversation and come on down?
Ann Carroll, 506 South Franklin Street. I'm also the chairperson of Civic Action Southeast. This comes as a huge surprise, although I had a gut feeling when I left the meeting on October 3rd about the super block. The comments that were made about College Arms were that it was something that they were considering. And the written materials said they are considering renovation, and then they are also considering replacement. And it was in the future. Well, in the future was 24 hours from the time those statements were made. That is, to me, unconscionable. Having said that, from my gut, and strangely, I said to a neighbor
As we left the meeting, I have a feeling it's much more imminent than the distant future that seemed to be implied. Unfortunately, my gut is often right. Just initial reactions, and this is not from case because we didn't have a clue, not one clue. No one from the university approached us.
no one from council approached us to let us know this was coming, not a clue. But what are we, the Welcome Center really disturbed me. What are we welcoming people to? This is NC2, except if we change it to PUC2, which is PUC1 light, which is what our ordinance that was drafted was supposed to prevent the creep of the university into NC. And you know how many times I've stood before you and said NC stands for Neighborhood conservation. So a welcome center that's going to sell merch and have flags, and then a party alley, that welcome center is offensive because that's our neighborhood. So it seems like we're squaring off the intersection, and the only thing that's left will be the historic house that's in West Goshen on the southwest corner. I don't know whether that survives, but it seems as though our neighborhood is now the welcome center for Westchester University. Well, we welcome students in Westchester University. I welcome them to my block, but that is just over the edge. So my emphasis is that you're carving out an entire, more than half of a square block, if you were to do this, of NC2, Neighborhood Conservation District. So where's the conservation? And we're welcoming people to the university by taking a piece of the neighborhood and making it look as though it's a showcase for the university. So on those, just on those things, I'm disturbed. But again, I'm not speaking for Case because we have not yet met. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Darrell Cook, South Walnut Street, bordering on Sharon Alley. I'm curious what an upperclassman is and the age, and how many parking spaces are on the site now, and how many are planned. Any less than 420, I'd say forget the plan. Thank you.
All right, any other comments from those in attendance?
Lisa Kearns, West Biddle Street. I haven't really had a chance to look at this. I looked at it briefly ahead of time. It seems to change the character so much of that area. I mean, right now, when you hit that, it's almost the transition into historic Westchester. And this would totally take away that feeling. It would go back to looking just like the university across the street. And I think we lose so much of the historic character that makes Westchester Westchester. When you look at the green and the columns, I mean, it looks historic and old, and it is. But so, and I'm curious again how many beds are there now and how many beds there will be. And obviously traffic on High Street, there's a lot of things to talk about, pedestrian traffic, but thank you.
Yeah, I think right now there's 100 beds. But I was a little confused by the math on the one page because it said 84 units, 420 beds. And so I'm like, is that 5 beds per unit? That's okay. Not like 2 or 3 beds, but 5. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Sue. What?
I'm in the chair races these days. Sue Bain, 726 South Penn Street. First of all, I want to thank Ann Carroll for all of her comments. She expresses well. And having lived through the building of the Edge, before it was called the Edge, the Walters Group actually came to the neighborhood and had a meeting and introduced their plan before it came to council. They got the neighbors' feedback. So this is really egregious in any which way you want to think about it. Couple questions. Would really like to see a rough floor-by-floor layout and confirm the number of students per apartment. You know, the math just doesn't make sense. If you have 84 apartments in a 3-story building, that's 28 apartments per building. and 9 per floor. If you have 13 accessible apartments all on the ground floor, that's 4 per building, which means that there are 71 apartments on the top 2 floors. And that's 12 apartments per floor. The math is not working because that means now you've got 5 kids in the apartments. And it's a max of 4 unrelated, unless something has changed.
That's different, that's for a dwelling unit.
Okay.
Be a student housing. The
So-
way they're, so that 4 per unit, 4 max wouldn't apply to a dormitory or a.
Doesn't it apply now or?
Not.
Okay, thank you. Okay, interesting. Anne pretty much nailed my comments on the Welcome Center. I'll also note that there is no parking in that area. So if you're going to put a Welcome Center on that corner, which is totally wrong, there's no visitor parking. There's nothing. So you've now got people coming in who got nowhere to go. The slide 10 that shows High Street and Sharon Alley. It just makes, that's the back of the building and it looks like half a dozen buildings up here uptown. You know, the one at West Market Street and so forth. The front facing High Street, that's an interesting facade. I don't happen to agree with it, but if you look at the backside, there's no interest. So, you know, there needs to be a nod towards the building you're taking down, which is World War II era building. You can't just rip that out and forget the history of that building and demolish the history of the neighborhood. You have to, it has to look like it's part of what is here. There does not look to be enough parking. You've got to, there have to be enough spaces for one, you know, per person. There's no extra space for parking. And we already know the university can't count parking spaces properly. So there has to be more parking. Other question is, are the RA and administrative staff, are the RA living on site? And are they in the dorm area or are they in a separate area? It kind of doesn't match up somehow. And where are the parking spaces for the administrative staff? You know, we can't have them walking in, parking at Mosteller Park or something, which is what people are doing now. So we need to have that. Skipping through a couple more questions. Slide 12 shows, it's a nice photo. It shows the building as it's coming onto a major street. And then it looks like it's down at Drexel or UPenn or something, except that all of their buildings close to a main street are classrooms. They're not living residences. And if you drive past College Arms as it exists now, kids are walking down the grass slope, they're hopping the sidewalk, they're cutting through traffic. These shots have no traffic. There's no, it doesn't look like a real scenario. So there needs to be something a little more definitive, a little more setback, a little bit more protected for both the residents and the people driving down the street, because somebody's going to get hit. There needs to be really, really good traffic studies, not just of vehicles, but of pedestrians. Because when classes are changing, you can't get through that intersection. It's horrible. So as soon as, 7:45 or whenever the first wave goes out to hit 8 o'clock classes, nobody's moving. There are going to be no cars moving at that intersection. So that has to stop. Last question would be on the parks in the area. I know we have something called a fee in lieu, and that will not cut it here. You're going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 students, which is a huge number, and they're going to be all over that park. They're going to be in the court, basketball courts, everything else. The university is going to have to start stepping up and really contributing. I asked years ago when I was on council for the university to contribute to retopping the basketball courts, and I got laughed at. So this is, that is a residential park. It's paid for by the borough's residents, not the university's residents, and it needs to be well maintained by whomever is using it. It sounds like it's going to be the university. That's all I got for now.
I wrote it all down. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Nina did too, I'm sure. Yeah. We got it. So we got all, yeah. All right. Okay. Come on down.
I'll keep it brief. Mike Reese, 706 South Walnut Street. I am in the somewhat an envious position of being probably the closest proximity to this particular project. I have been fortunate in some sense, unlike what I've heard now from some of my fellow neighbors, that I did catch wind of this project several weeks ago. What I will say is credit where credit's due. I had the opportunity to provide some feedback to Mr. Nagel. He has been very receptive to feedback, but I'll share some of that feedback that I've given to him. I have significant concerns with regards to what would essentially constitute a 400% increase in student housing there, in the number of beds. I certainly understand, feasibility concepts and how, the economics of this has to work. I would hope. Oh,
I can't hear a word you're saying.
yeah. Okay. All right.
You're taller than the mic.
So again, I certainly understand the positioning of this having to have a certain number of volume increase with regards to beds. But where I get get concerned is with some of the challenges that we deal with down in that ward as it is today. We have some nuisance issues. We have some quality of life issues that come with the population and the student density that we have in that area. And I do get concerned that obviously an influx of an additional 300 or so students could compound that challenge. Again, I've expressed this concern. I also have some concerns with regards to just how the particular architecture fits into that area with regards to height variances and things of that nature, regards to light pollution, just in general, greater density and population, parking, all thoughts that I think need to be further fleshed out. Again, I think the university is receptive to hearing these thoughts. I would expect that from them. If I had my personal opinion, the property as it was would be rehabilitated. Again, understanding the feasibility of all of that. But what I want to say is I think there absolutely needs to be continuing discussion with regards to the project. And I do appreciate that. I do feel as though the university is trying to communicate to the community. I think there's probably certainly an opportunity to do a better job. Again, I was kind of fortunate to hear about this before, but I am looking forward to continued discussion as this evolves to a degree. So, thank you.
All right. And any other comments? Any comments from you guys?
Sure.
All right. Give us, yeah.
Good evening.
Good
Good
evening.
to see you again, Mr.
Like-
Nagel. You just keep
likewise.
coming back.
Thank you.
It's always good to see you. I've written down some texts, which I'll read. That way there, I get it done at the right time. Most of what I have written down has been already either questioned or answered. But I'm going to make some very definitive points based on Westchester Borough and the university. According to the borough, Westchester Borough's comprehensive plan, which Ms. Ann Carroll brought up, published in 2018, these are a few snippets from the plan that are specific to Westchester University: student growth, saturation of students living in neighborhoods, and resulting in quality of life. When they did the comprehensive plan, that was one of their major concerns that they found. Housing is key to maintaining community and economic vitality in Westchester. Off-campus student housing is a great concern. So the 4 people that wrote the comprehensive plan already had concerns about the university creeping where they don't belong. Let's see. The neighborhoods have reached the point of saturation. We're talking about beyond High Street going east. Those neighborhoods have reached the point of saturation in their ability to absorb student housing and still maintain the quality of life for non-student residents. So if they're not living on campus, they're living in the neighborhood. And I've checked, we're no longer issuing student rental permits. So those that are there are there. We hope that families move in and cancel their student rental to bring families into the area. There's a general agreement that the supply of off-campus housing, student housing in the borough cannot be allowed to increase any further. It is especially important to break up large concentrations of student homes in certain blocks. So I guess they're talking about Walnut and Maddox Street. Yeah, the big student houses. It's important that people understand what NC2 stands for. Ms. Carroll brought it up because it just runs off people's tongues, like NC2, NC12, but and no one really pays attention. That's why I asked you to tell us what the PUC was, so people will start to add things into their head. One of my questions was how many student beds, and this question that still lingers out there: what does our zoning allow in terms of increasing the number of beds when the student home are raised and rebuilt in a neighborhood conservative district? So what I'm assuming is that if we don't go to PCU 2, you guys can't do what you want to do. Is that correct?
Correct. We could expand the building, but only to an extent.
Okay.
From a practicality and feasibility standpoint, that's probably not even in the cards, but legally, we could expand the existing building to a certain extent by special exception.
Okay. And I'll finish up with a couple of ones because all you guys, the residents have asked the questions. This is coming from the university and not from the borough. The university has stated in 2018, it recognizes that it can no longer grow in Westchester. It has hit the capacity in classroom, office, and student support spaces. The problems that are visible in the community, parking, student housing, are also a planning problem for the university. Any growth in enrollment will come from, this is from the university saying, any growth from enrollment will come from distance learning, off-site locations, and dual enrollment programs with area high schools and community colleges. So, we've been told the last couple of meetings that we've had for various reasons, the enrollment is not increasing, it's actually decreasing from the last meeting that we had with the folks from the university. I really have two major concerns as we sit today. So I gave you what the forefathers said. I gave you what the university said, but looking at the plan and looking to Mr. Reese's point, we have 120 people basically living on that block right now. and we're going to put 300 more people on that block, okay? That's, a density is pretty significant, okay? And I believe in our borough code, I talked to Mr. Money about it, the parking, when we do parking, Pete Stas will be able to smile about this one. We negotiated suburban urban, so it's basically 1.5 parking spots per bed. Am I right?
Per unit.
Per unit. So you guys are like 120 below on site for parking spaces on the property. So, I mean,
And that doesn't take into account all the 5 beds.
right. So it's confusing. I like change, but I don't like change at the expense of the neighborhood or the historic factors down that area. And I'm glad that the university is going to do something with that spot. As I explained to a resident today, instead of you guys building vertically, you guys are building horizontally. So it's basically the same thing. So you're still, instead of going this way, you're going that way. So, and you're trying to cram it in there. For me, if we could get the number down around 275 to 300 and more parking on site, I could see myself agreeing to the plan. So.
Okay, let me just address a few of the points you made before I get too far behind some of the points that the neighbors made, if I could, and then
If Ms. Shimoni or Ms. Dorsey have anything further, I can address those. With respect to, I mean, this property it's not in the PUC, but certainly from the university's perspective, it's already part of the university campus. With respect to the goals of the comprehensive plan that you referenced, Mr. Flynn,
we think this does exactly what that wants, which is to take pressure off of the off-campus student housing in the neighborhoods. You know, a significant goal of the university right now, and one of the things they're hearing from their students and the parents of the students is more on-campus housing. That's been the discussion for the last few years with the borough, with the parents, with the students. That's really the big need. And so this is part of fulfilling that need. And we think it achieves what the goal of the comprehensive plan is in terms of taking some of the pressure off of the Walnut Street and other corridor areas that we all know is the now restricted off-campus student housing. In terms of the reference to the university saying it will no longer grow, it's nuanced. I don't think the university said that. I don't think the university can say that. The university has a statutory obligation to educate students and house those students. So it can't say it won't grow. The law won't permit, either from the statute or from the law in Pennsylvania, for the borough or the university to say it won't grow. But I think what you're referring to, which is accurate, is over the last 5 years, the enrollment has declined to some degree. And the university has done a number of studies, particularly in conjunction with the master plan process that it's going through right now on enrollment. And the projections are that, yes, most of the growth is going to happen online, off-site campuses, but in terms of enrollment growth, they're looking at 100 students to 200 students over the next several years. There's not significant enrollment growth anticipated. In terms of the parking, and I didn't mention this initially when I went through, I probably should have, but there's on site, we're talking about 91 spaces, 80 for the housing itself. And then if you go back and look at that overhead plan, you'll see there is designated parking for the Welcome Center itself. That's consistent with the parking ratio for the 97 beds that are there today. And even with the parking ratio that we have today, we still had about 30% capacity in terms of parking for what the students got permits for and utilized for living in that building. So what we're also looking at designating another 130 parking spaces in M lot that would be designated spaces for students living in the building. So we're talking about 210 beds, which is half a space per unit, which is consistent with what we have today at College Arms, and we think is ample parking. It also, because the parking is spread, it will also spread the traffic for the site. So you'll have students going down the Matlack corridor, cutting from High Street or Matlack, as you can access M-Lot from both sides. And then you'll have the students coming into town who would park on site. So you'll be blending the traffic, the vehicular traffic and the pedestrian traffic and splitting it up. So we think that's beneficial. In terms of one of the neighbors asked about, I think it was you, Darrell, that asked about upperclassmen. Upperclassmen are defined as sophomores and above. So this is basically a no freshman building. In terms of RAs on site, there's RAs living there today, and the setup would be the same. The RAs would live in units like they do today, so that wouldn't change. Ms. Bain made a good point about the pedestrians and the High Street corridor. Today, there's chains controlling the pedestrian traffic. It's not shown in these renderings, but I don't imagine that the university is proposing to change the setup today to try to control the pedestrian crossing High Street. So that, even though that's not shown in the renderings, we understand that issue. We're sensitive to that issue, and we're certainly planning to address that. In terms of traffic studies, if the borough were to adopt zoning similar to what's been proposed, obviously that's just the first step. There would be a couple other steps that would have to happen. First of all, the master plan would need to be amended and updated to include, rather than renovation, the redevelopment of this site. At that time, not only would there have to be a traffic study for this particular College Arms site, but that would also have to be cross-referenced back to the overall campus traffic studies. So even more than a usual standalone project, because of the master plan ordinance that you have in place now, that would force sort of like belt and suspender traffic studies for this particular project, not only in reference to this particular project, but in reference to campus-wide traffic considerations. One of the other things that I think the university would be looking to do as part of this project is working with the borough. Obviously, it backs up to 2 residents, Mr. Reese and his neighbor Brian, who's here, directly on the other side of Sharon Alley. And then the rest of that block is a park. One of the things the university would be interested and willing to do is work with the borough to look at upgrades within the park. So I think the university is extremely sensitive to the concerns of the residents. I think it's designed the plan with the specific intent of trying to make this property fit within the fabric of the borough. I think some of us believe what we propose fits in better than what's there today and creates a much better relationship between the use, the buildings, and the streetscape. It also, if you look at the overhead plan, it really directs the pedestrian traffic out to High Street and out to Linden Street to get to High Street. So that's been looked at and thought through as well.
Lisa, any comments?
One, I want to thank the residents, right? I think their feedback is key to the success of this project, should it go forward. And I think they raised very valid points that maybe had not been heard before. My concern is the parking. And I heard you, Mr. Nagel, refer to, it's comparable to what's there today, but we are trying to get beyond that, right? To address the overall parking issues in the borough. And we need to take into consideration the requirements of, the updated ordinance and the 1.5 parkings per unit. And if there's 5 kids in one unit, I would dare say 1.5 parking spaces per unit is not going to cut it. It's going to be a concern. And you and I both know that kids are not going to park in M-Lot. Some of them are, but I don't know that the majority of them are. And they're going to be looking for places in front of residents' houses to park. So I hope that the university will take all of this feedback back into consideration and consider, what adjustments can be made. And I do think that Mr. Flynn, as well as a resident, there is a valid concern around the NC preserving the integrity of the NC2, right?
Yep.
Designation. So-
Agreed. Yeah, we'll take a look at the parking and all of the comments that we've heard.
All right, so I'll close it out. I think that the residents, they brought a lot of great comments. I've heard some of them before in talking with Mike, and the Welcome Center comment was something new that I had not heard before. I think I've seen the plan before, and I looked at the Welcome Center and found it actually welcoming, but that's an interesting take. So thank you for bringing your feedback on that one to the table. I've looked at this plan, and I think you guys are trying to make some lemonade out of what's currently a building that's a little bit of lemons. I agree that 420 units or beds may be more than our NC2 neighborhood can handle, knowing that there's really only 100 right now. So to Mike's point, we can talk more about this, now that we're in the public forum and having the conversations in the public. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm concerned about the parking. I look at where I park, and I live in a bunch of townhomes, and we are not students. And yes, we probably live closer to the 1.5 ratio, but I look across the alley, and they're all student homes, and the cars are packed in their little tiny driveways, stacked and packed, trying to jam them in because the students bring their cars. And so if the parking in the M-Lot's free, they might use it, right? If it's free, but you can't charge them for it, because if you charge them for it, they're not going to pay for it. But if it's free, maybe they'll use it. But the fact of the matter is if you're still only giving them enough parking that's only half the number of beds, they're still going to jam themselves into the neighborhoods, and there's it's tricky to get there. And students are parking. Anne gave a comment last week. I think she ran into some students that couldn't find parking in the lots where they were allocated to be able to park, and they ended up parking in permit parking in her neighborhood illegally because they were struggling to find parking in lots. So it's there, but for some, they're still struggling. So to go forth with a new project and not provide them the parking, we're setting ourselves up for not having success with getting that piece. But I appreciate you guys trying to make lemons out of this lemonade building and trying to do something to create a living space for the students, because we know that they need more housing, and we want more housing for them. And so I do hope we keep continuing this conversation and working through it and kind of figuring out what works for everyone to be able to support our community, which is a symbiotic relationship between the university and the borough. And how do we make this something workable for everybody, and not, that's kind of what I'm hoping for. So.
Okay. Well, I think we would appreciate the opportunity to take some of this feedback and to come back to council next week and give a presentation and maybe add some of the stuff that we've talked about this evening and continue that discussion.
The residents are very concerned. They want a special meeting. Do you guys want a special meeting or something? Like, what are you looking for to voice your opinions? We're here and we're in the community, and we have a community forum. What else can help you give your feedback and understand what's going on? What can we do to help further address your concerns, knowing that we've taken a lot of them today and the conversation's continuing, and what have you? Come on down, voice your opinion. We want to hear it. Well, the microphone can and the people listening can't. Yeah. Thank you.
24 hours notice and 1 week of working through the comments you heard here, which are nowhere near all the comments that may be out there, is not sufficient. So I would suggest that this not even go yet. This should stay in smart growth until some stuff is worked out. But certainly there should be a meeting with the neighbors of NC2. I mean, every major development, I'm going to call it the Burger King development, but the Burger King development, there were multiple meetings of all kinds of stuff that went on and on and on and on, and now it's a lawsuit, but it went on. And that was considered a massive building. If that was considered a massive building, what is this? And yet there has been no neighborhood discussion. So I, as chairperson of case, would invite the university to contact me. And certainly you have my contact information from the sign-in sheet Monday. And we will set up a date for neighbors to meet, and it might need to coordinate here at Borough Hall because it might be larger than where we usually meet in the Public Works building. But yeah, there needs to be conversation. It's like, I really have a feeling that this is being steamrolled, and this is not taking a huge portion of somebody's neighborhood and making it another zoning district. That is not a 1 week conversation or even a 1 month conversation. If that happened in any one of your wards, that somebody said, we're taking a half of a city block, and these are city blocks because this is High Street, and we're going to change it to be now university, you'd go wild. So that's what I think should happen. Thank you for asking.
Wants to, yeah.
I just wanted to make one statement. In regards to what's going on, this is the very first step in a marathon, not a sprint. And what I mean by that is just for the zoning alteration and the amendments that are being proposed, those have to go through several different reviews, including public hearings. This is something that's going to be the next several months at minimum, just for the zoning portion of this. We have not seen any real plans, just a concept of what's going on right now. So we're getting I just want to say that we're getting a couple of steps ahead of what's going on. This is not something that's going to be done in a week. This is not something that's going to be done in a month. This is not going to be done before the end of this year at the very earliest, and probably not into February or so forth. There's a lot of things that have to go on with this and a lot of steps that have to go on with this. So I don't want anybody to think that this is just being rammed through and just we're skipping a whole bunch of steps. This is just the very first introduction of what's going on here.
So Aaron, what do you recommend for the next steps in this process?
I would recommend that we do what Ann has asked, that this be kept in smart growth and discussed again. Give Brian the time to answer some of the questions that were brought forward, to go back to the university and possibly open up with them an opportunity to sit down with Ann and the group that she represents, or other concerned individuals, or that we even, before we move to the next steps. And then obviously we will take, this came about very quickly because we wanted to get it out and have everybody have a chance to actually see what was going on. This wasn't us moving forward with the whole thing. And it was my, like I said before, I'll take responsibility for that. But there are a whole bunch of steps. But the first one is we're not really, this was just a discussion point today, and we're not asking to move it forward out of this position. They're going to have to come back to ask for it to move down, because Kristen's got to look through what Brian has proposed. Brian and her are going to have discussions. I'm going to have discussions with Brian. There's going to be a lot of things that are done before we can move forward with this.
My perspective on that is partial agreement. We're happy to have a neighbor meeting, and I'll contact Ann and set that up. What I don't want to do is get feedback from neighbors and feedback we received tonight, and then be in a position where I can't make updates to the plan that we can all look at together because I haven't gotten feedback from the rest of council. So I think it's critical that we come back to council. I'm not asking for any action on this month. I'm just asking for continued discussion. So every time that Nicole Ward, who's here, has to go back and incorporate some change to the plan and ask Nicole, by the way, I'm sorry, is the executive director and design and construction for the university. Every time she has to go back to a consultant and get this rendering changed, tweak things, it's extremely expensive. It's time consuming. And so if we get neighbor feedback and then try to do that, and we haven't had council feedback, then we've got to do it again. And it's just unnecessary. So because we're not asking for any action, I'd like you to recommend that it stay on the council agenda so we can get council's feedback. Again, no request for any action other than to give initial feedback. And in the meantime, we'll schedule a meeting with the neighbors. We'll get their feedback, and that will give Nicole the opportunity to talk to our design team and to try to get some of this incorporated so we can stay in the public forum. I mean, if you want public notice and public awareness, this is where we should be doing it. We shouldn't go out of the public meeting forum and try to work on changes. We should do it through this process. And with no action, I don't see any prejudice or harm to anybody to do that. Actually, I see the opposite to the university if we don't do that.
Yeah, and I see Ann and Sue shaking their heads in the back, and I know they're going to be pissed at me, but the fact of the matter is I kind of want to hear the other feedback from the borough council members as well next week. I want you to have that. I also want them to talk to you guys. So I agree with no action next week. I mean, we can easily do that. I know you're shaking your head, but I respectfully don't agree with you shaking your head. I think it's good.
This is a neighborhood. They could have sat here, they could have listened. Not need this to go to council next week, because there's no action. It's a waste of time. All council sitting listening to something that has none of the neighborhood's involvement, input, and I'm sorry, if it takes 5 iterations to get something right, then it'll be better for everybody. But you need to state this, go to fourth ward with their comments, and then you can do your sketch plan. You don't have to.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Thank you. I get your perspective.
This is a discretionary decision. Anytime there's a zoning amendment proposed, it's completely council's discretion. So when I found out about this, I wanted to understand whether 4 people on council wanted to see, maybe not this exactly, but some iteration that I would then work with the university in getting the right ordinance together. So I think it is valuable to understand what the other 4 people say sooner rather than later. So you're not wasting everybody's time. You're not wasting this woman's time who has to go back and have the plans changed. You're not, the university needs to do something with this building. And I think we need to understand what the 7 members of council, we know what 3 people generally think, but we need to understand what the other 4 people think, because it could die in the vine. It could yell, it has legs, but let's work on these things, all the while still going back to the neighborhood. So I think there's some value.
So thank you. So I think I'm there. I want to hear everybody else's opinion next week. Are you guys on board with discussion only for next week? Okay, yep. All right.
Discussion only.
All right. So we're 3-0. We're going to put it on for discussion next week. We're not going to make any decisions, but they're going to hear it. You're going to hear their feedback. And then you're going to talk to the residents and work with Case and get a meeting going on there and get more feedback there. And we'll move forward at that point in time and see what, as you incorporate the feedback, and we'll continue the conversation. So we'll see you next week, and then we'll see you at Smart Growth next month for sure.
Very, very well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Can I ask one thing?
I have a question for Mr. Nagel. The property as it stands right now, sitting on Rosedale and High Street, and it's not in the PUC.
Correct.
It's in the Neighborhood Conservation District.
2, correct.
I worked on that. And my halls. But besides that, is the university paying taxes because it's not in the property taxes to the boroughs, and it's not
part of the super block?
No, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is immune from taxation, so they're not
Well,
exempt.
we know they're immune. Yeah, we know they're immune by 500,000.
But I didn't know whether we'd losing property.
I
No.
believe we get taxes from the commercial spaces, so.
Correct. I'd have to check on that, but I will say this, whatever it is, this is a tax neutral issue.
The other thing, Mr. Money, we're going to have two people coming on to Borough Council, and they're in the room tonight. So hopefully next week you show up and opine on what your feelings are, because some people are leaving, and we want to make sure that, your comments are included. So you think so?
Yeah. 100%. And we have 3 people that, well, for next year. So we got to get the message out to
Yeah.
potential third person as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Could I
Thank
ask one question? Brian, when you come back next week, for council, could you bring some parking numbers? Because I've reached out to the university, but last minute, but it would be really helpful to understand how many spaces you have, how many permits you sell, anything like that, I think might also help some of this conversation go a little
Are you,
smoother.
Ramsey, are you asking for with respect to College Arms specifically or generally?
I would say in general, because if you're saying M-Lot, I know that's used by other areas, and I think the garages also have different lottery opportunities. So if you have any information on like what's been sold versus what's available, it might be really helpful for the
Okay.
conversation.
We'll pull that together. No problem. Thank you.
All right, we're not done.
Still great.
All right, next. Okay, I want. All right. Next items on the agenda would be we're going to go to item C, discuss amending chapter 112-309 Town Center. We're also going to talk about item F, discuss amending chapter 112-309B, revised dimensional requirements in the town center. And we're going to talk about item H, discuss amendment to chapter 112-702 sign regulations. So
Nicole,
The floor-
C and F.
they're the same. Okay. So
I was just going to say that C and F are the exact same thing. And what that is doing is this was brought forth last month. And there is a recommendation letter from the Planning Commission to change 3 things inside the TC district building dimensional regulations. And the first one is to create a front yard setback minimum of 0 feet. It would be a minimum of 0 feet. It could be, there's a ability for them to go at different levels. With that, those areas that would be over 45 feet or taking advantage of the height or overlays, I believe it's 60 and 40 or 60 and 70, or I forget exactly the height overlays that are being taken advantage of. Those would have a minimum setback of 10 feet. And the purpose of that is when you have those larger buildings sitting up on the street, it can restrict some of the light and kind of make it more claustrophobic and impact the pedestrian access. So this would require it to be set back a little bit, allowing more light, a little more air, a little bit more open space so that it's not quite as intimidating. The other thing is that the side yard setback would also be set at 0. And this isn't a huge alteration. It's basically going back to the requirements that were there previous to this last amendment on those. So that's both the first 2. And I believe that the other one is in regards to the sign ordinance. What is going on there? This was a request from the architect from Harb. In the ordinance states that any pedestal sign or standing sign has to have a metal base or a pressure treated wood base holding it up. In the historic downtown district, that might be counterintuitive to what we're trying to do with the historic preservation. They are looking for the opportunity to allow substitutions with the Harb recommendation for approval. So they want to make a slight alteration to the words in there and add an amendment that would allow for them to make alterations in that regard. And also in the same district, there's concerns about the square footage, total square footage allowed for a sign. And I believe it's at 24 linear feet. It's allowed for an individual sign. You're allowed to have, if there's multiple places in the same building, retail spaces in the same building, you can have multiple signs. But in larger buildings, you're ending up with, even though you think 24 linear feet is a very long thing, but if you have a 200-foot long building, that looks really tiny and it looks out of place and it may not be appropriate for what is there. So once again, they were looking for the ability to have alterations or substitute per the HARB architect's recommendations or HARB's recommendations in those regards. I just want permission to explore that language and have that sent to the solicitor to review and put it in the correct language for an ordinance.
Okay, so let me go back to C/F, because C, from what I recall last month, we were good with the proposal from the Planning Commission, and the request was to put an ordinance together. And I think that's what this is.
Yeah, so, and this goes all the way back to, if you recall, the Planning Commission last year had 5 changes as a result of 410 South High Street building and some of the interpretation issues and different interpretations, some are which are on appeal. And so the Planning Commission started working on this quite a while ago, and we just kept getting hung up on the building setback line. So this is sort of the final product, and it's 2 changes. And it's, instead of doing the match adjacent setbacks, which caused all kind of controversy about which setback, is it across the street, isn't it across the street? They wanted that to be changed to just be 0 feet, and then the side yard as well. Instead of match adjacent and 5 feet, it's now 0 feet. So those are the 2 changes, and that as a result of Planning Commission recommendation way long ago.
So for C/F, I'm okay with that. Are you guys, like, do you have any comments? Does anyone have any comments that's still in the building? All right.
I will say that F was the same thing. It was just put into the unified residential development, and it's just being pulled out to match up with it.
All right. Oh, okay. All right. So we're good on C/F, and then H is actually somewhat slightly different. So H is actually the signage. Is it that you want to update this with the signage information, or is this actually separate? Really?
It's actually separate from those 2, but they are both dealing with minor alterations to the zoning amendment. So they wanted us to, in an attempt to speed through, because we knew that there was going to be a lot tonight, we were hoping to do them all at once.
So is there are they in this amendment that we see here tonight?
No, we have not written this up. It's basically, all I'm asking for is permission from Smart Growth to investigate the type of wording that we would have to do for it and send it to the solicitor to.
So would
write it
we
up.
would we not send this to the work session for approval, these setbacks, until we make these other, okay, so they're all totally separate, actually. Okay. So we're good with C/F to send it to work session for approval. So then H, are we good with H for the sign updates to explore a different update to a different ordinance piece? Okay. All right. Okay. Any questions from anyone out here? Okay. Okay. So they weren't really all combined. It was more like C/F with one thing, and then
/F, but they all wanted us, because it all has to deal with zoning ordinance.
all right. So let's go back to H, or sorry, D. So consider directing the solicitor to attend the zoning hearing board. And from what I recall in your director's report, you are saying, Aaron, your recommendation is for 1035, which is 740 South Matlack Street, the zoning relief from required parking curbing in the alley. Your recommendation is that we don't send it the solicitor, that this is actually related to the Public Works recommendation request from, and that we're updating the ordinance actually to match this.
Correct.
So, okay. And then for 1036, 124 East Chestnut Street, you are actually requesting that because of the nuances of the issue there, that we send the solicitor because of what the owner is asking for with and they're encroaching almost on the neighbor's yard at that moment.
Correct.
Does anyone have any questions on those two? Does anyone out here have any questions on those two? So I think we are good with the recommendations that Aaron presented to go as our recommendation to work session.
I do want to make a note, we already approved for the solicitor to sit in and defend us on the one for 436 North Church.
Yeah, because that
Already
was
did.
on here. Oh,
Did that last month.
Did that last
Yeah.
month.
Yes. And it wasn't on this list.
Yeah,
either.
Aaron, when will the hearing be for 124 East Chestnut? Is that set up?
For 27th.
That is already set up for then. Okay.
All right. Motion to approve the HARB applications. These are all signs for local businesses, and the HARB gave recommendations. And does anyone have any questions on the HARB recommend? Anyone out here have any questions on the HARB recommendations? No. Pete, no questions? You're good? Okay. So 3-0 to the work session to go with the recommendations of HARB. And G, discuss amendment to Chapter 95, 11B, Streets and Sidewalks.
I have attached a staff report, should have been attached here at some point. And basically what we were looking at this has been an ongoing thing in 9511B. It states that sidewalks will be used only as sidewalks and no other use, which does not allow us to put planters, does not allow us to put herb gardens, anything on the sidewalk, signs, flag signs, temporary A-frames, things of that sort, without permission from council. The state does not allow anything to be put in the right-of-way or sidewalks for state roads, and it leaves the power to determine what happens on municipal roads to the municipality. We have some other, I think it's 9524 that deals with if there are going to be things placed, you have to keep the 36 inches to the center of the walkway free and not have it obstructed in any manner. As part of the staff report that was provided, there was a number of photos that we took, both of beneficial things and non-beneficial things. Flag signs put right against the side of the road where they're in the right of way, where they can fall over into, that were unsecured, that could fall over into traffic, or could cause issues with people opening doors and getting out of a vehicle. There were plants that were put onto Gay Street that are not part of the design that was in the cafe permit, that are causing restrictions to being able to visually see stop signs or stop lights, or that are restricting access ways. There are A-frame signs that are being left out 24/7 everywhere, and that are in the right of way, which on state-run roads, which are not allowed. And then there are other things, such as there was a very colorful, very pretty, beautiful planter that was set where you have 10-foot sidewalks. It's only taken up 2 feet. You have plenty of room. It's 15 feet away from any pole, lamp, or tree. So there's plenty of room for ADA necessary access. There's plenty of room for people walking around. The purpose of what we want to do, and this goes into a number of other things, such as people giving permission to just set up a table to other people sitting out on, to put out in front of their stores or anything else. What we are looking to do is to put an amendment that will allow permitting, that would allow us to provide a permit for not getting the permit or for doing things outside of your permit, so that we have a way of providing individuals an opportunity and guidelines on what the council would be willing to accept for things to go into the right of way. because we have had a number of locations, and this has been brought up in other ordinances, such as previously, I think it was chapter 80, where they don't, about, you have to have permission from the landlord and the borough for putting up a table or putting up something onto the sidewalk. This would be our mechanism for regulating that and for enforcing those rules. So as part of it, we would have the permitting process, what you have to go through for the permitting, nominal cost, whatever is set by the council, and then the requirements that you have to meet. You have to meet the requirements in 94 or 9524. You have to meet the requirements in 80, whatever that was, so that we would have those all specified in the application and so forth. And then we would monitor all of those things, and it would give us a more thorough way as a code enforcement division to be able to actually implement what we believe the council wants in controlling some of the non-approved stuff going into the walkway.
All right.
What I'm asking for is permission to
draw up something.
draw up something and get that to the
Proposal
solicitor.
for what it would look like if we created a permit process to manage planters and some things that could benefit the borough versus, and then help you regulate things that maybe don't benefit the borough.
Correct.
All right. I like the idea. I'm good with it. Yeah.
Yeah, for example, let's just take the corner of Walnut and East Gay, right across the street from the post office. You mentioned that the bushes there on the corner, they actually are blocking the crosswalk. They're actually blocking the streetlights, the lights. They're not flame proof because there's string lights above it, right? So one of those bulbs could break and the plastic trees could catch on fire. So they're the concerns that I have.
Are you talking about OPA?
I didn't want to say the name.
No, he's not talking about OPA.
Yeah, I didn't want to say the name. So, I mean, you've seen it all on that part. And then we've had people just show up with tables and selling homemade goods, anywhere they want on the blocks. And I think we could probably control that much easier that way as well. The objects, the flags that you talked about, we're going to have to talk to the visitor center because they would be in violation of the.
We approved their sign months ago.
No,
What-
They put a flag in.
I know, but we approved the sign to go there. Where's
Yeah,
their sign
Yeah,
that we
so,
approved?
I mean, that's, to your point, that's a violation. So I'm just going through them. And then we have one business that had purple and, no, had green and silver balls. And now they have purple and gold balls and the green and silver balls and they're in the right of way. So how would you handle something like that? Because the ordinance does say you're not allowed to put decorative items in the right of way. That would solve a lot of the issues.
Currently, right now, and we have been doing this every Friday because of the cafe permits and so forth. As it said, there was bushes that were being put in front of stoplights and then underneath of other lights. We literally go walking up to the end of Gay Street and down onto Market, and we walk back, and we are going in and actually addressing those issues with people and say, hey, we're educating you now, but we're going to start enforcing this. I am having a permitting system. It's the ordinance that is written, and forgive me, is not 100% clear. Technically, it states that nothing can go on the sidewalk, and I can go out there and tell everybody to take everything off the sidewalk. That's not really a realistic thing because we do want to keep the cafe permits and other things like that. And then you're getting into conflicts between different types because now you have people say, well, you're allowing them to do this up here, but not us to do it down here. With adding the language for permitting, then we have the opportunity to not just educate them on what they can't do, but give them an opportunity to meet the requirements of what is allowed, and allowing the council to actually put in writing what they want satisfied to be able to do these things. So you want to maintain a minimum of 36 or 48 inches in the middle of the road. You want to keep everything where you have parking. If you have parking on the street, you cannot have anything within 18 inches or 36 inches of the curb. But whatever, however you want to write it up so that you can have the ability to improve not only the beauty of the town, because one of the great things about Westchester and what's fun about it is on Fridays and Saturdays, you can go down and have a wonderful time on Gay Street, and it looks beautiful. It does look beautiful. It looks very inviting and looks very welcoming, but it would allow you to have those individuals in other sections of the town that are trying to do similar things, to bring some of that down to them, to have a way to do it without breaking the rules and having us coming in and saying you can't. So that's
Basically, are you going to give the businesses a list of do's and don'ts, what they can have on the sidewalk, like flags, balloons, signboards, so that way everybody's I'm a rule follower. I actually let people speak now because they're visitors. So I'm a rule follower.
I was here when you were told to do that. Yes.
I follow the rules. So, and we even let taxpayers speak now. Yeah, go figure that one.
The idea is that with the permitting,
Explicitly what's allowed, what's acceptable. Because it's the Harb district. You know what I'm saying? Most of it's in the Harb district. And, yeah, we want to have fun, but we don't want a carnival atmosphere as well. So.
I agree. And part of what we were doing, it would be similar to what we're doing with rental licenses and with inspections. What we are doing is sending out to the individuals that we are scheduling inspections out a list of the things that they need to do to pass this inspection, what we are going to be looking for. And as part of them wanting to get the permit, there would be a document,
A PDF document on this stating these are the requirements for you to be able to do what you need to do. So we would be doing that so that you have that information.
So just to make sure I'm clear, is your vision kind of like a permit for every time they want to set something out, or is it like a blanket permit, like for the year of this year,
You have a permit to put these types of things out in front of your building in case they want to change, we allow balloons and they want to change the balloon color or something, like what are you thinking?
what it would be is similar to the bay permit, where they have a design that what they're going to be doing, that they submit with the permit. And if they want to change that design, they have to get that approved. It wouldn't be any additional money or anything like that. They would send in whatever the change is going to be. And then we would just say, send them a notice saying, yes, that's approved. No, that's not approved. It would take 5 minutes or a couple of minutes to do this. But the idea is that we would always know what is being done and what is actually in our streets. We would also have the control to say, hey, this cannot be permanent. This cannot be over 50 pounds, because if it needs to be moved out of the way, it needs to be moved out of the way. Give you an example, there is a store up from here that has a curb that was not put down correctly, and half of it is sticking into the walkway. I've stopped there once and asked them to move it in, and they didn't do it. And I stopped back and said, if you don't do it, I have to write you up. And all of a sudden somebody was out there moving it back in. But that would be kind of the things that we'd need to do. So if there's something that has to be moved, or, we would actually have the one planter I saw is a ceramic planter that itself weighs about 200 pounds. So with the dirt and the gravel and plants, it's going to be 300-400 pounds. That's permanent. That's not moving anywhere. But it would also allow us not to have that flag sitting on the side of the road that a high wind could take and impale into somebody's car. So that's kind of the idea, is to have some regulations that would restrict what they can do, how they can do it, and then give us the ability to make it easier on us to say, hey, you need to change this because it doesn't meet it.
All right, any questions from you, Lisa? Any questions from anyone out? Okay. All right, I think we're good with like having Aaron draw up a proposal for a permitting system for accessory items outside of a business in town.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
No,
Not
yeah,
have to.
go back.
I'm trying to keep my answer short so we don't take as much time.
By no, I mean yes. Yes.
He's shooting me daggers right now, and I'm trying not to talk to
But
him.
last but not least.
Did you guys do the Harb?
Yeah, we did the Harb
Okay.
stuff and we were good. We
I
were
missed
good with
that,
the
sorry,
Harb
okay.
stuff. 3-0. We're good with what Harb wants. All right, discuss universal residential development use zoning amendment.
To make a correction on that, and Kristen pointed this out to me, but I couldn't get it changed in time. It's unified, not universal. It actually says it correctly on the attachments, but at some point I messed that up on this, so I apologize.
All the towns everywhere. It's okay.
This was something that was brought up. It is a new use that is being proposed to be added to the town center district. And there was an ordinance that was created and reviewed by the Planning Commission. And I believe that we do want to be able to move forward with this. What it is the use will be for residential developments inside of the TC district, the town center district, which would be usually, I think it is a maximum of 3 acres. I don't believe there's a minimum that's included with this. And as you read through the ordinance, it spells out what the requirements for this is, and it will allow things like what is going on at Burger King. That was the impetus that started this, and there are other lots and other potential areas that this could be used in that area, so that you're not getting everybody coming in and saying, oh, the only thing we can do there is a big apartment building, and it's just counter to whatever's going on. This allows for more of what is termed a townhouse development, and it gives some special allowances such as stackable parking in their driveway. It allows for some minimums that are for the size of the private driveways that run through the property. It would allow for fronting of a building not only onto a main street or an alley, but into a courtway. To give you an example, I'm just going to use this because it is the example that we've been using, is the Burger King development has the development on the outside, which fronts the 3 main streets, Dean, Price, and High. But on the back, there is an alley or a portion of an alley. But what they did is instead of fronting that alley, they made them front onto a open courtyard, which allows for more permeable space and still allows for the maximum use of the property. So it's a way of allowing for a little bit more diverse development inside the TC district.
Can I ask a question though? Because the planning commission has a recommendation, but I read the recommendation as the planning commission wants additional edits made to the draft. So we can't send this anywhere until the planning commission. I mean, the planning commission recommendation says that they want to incorporate revisions discussed and agreed to, I guess, at the planning commission meeting. And then they want to review and PC review and incorporation of select sections of design guidelines for the historic district. So I read this as there's additional edits the planning commission wants to see made. So we can't send it to the county planning commission yet. So I'm not sure until these are made what we're doing. Clarification.
At the time, Tom was there, Tom Estes, and he had said that this was the way that we should move forward with it. So if that's different, then it's fine.
Just if changes are being made, and I guess I just asked Jim, the intention is the planning commission is going to continue to work on this and make additional edits?
Yes,
Okay, so
that is.
we should hold off until those are fully made, and then you guys will get it, decide if you're good with it, we'll get it to the county planning, and we'll move it on to a hearing. That make sense?
Can these changes get made before the work session next week? Is that a
No, not at this point, no.
first? Okay.
Planning Commission, no, if there's people on the Planning Commission that are working on it and can get it to council for next week, that's fine. I mean, the Planning Commission has to, as part of the municipality's planning code review, the 247 review, they also have to review it and give a recommendation. So I wasn't at the Planning Commission. So if it's something that like somebody's working on it and it's going to be a quick turnaround, that can go to council next week. But if it's going to take a longer period and you need the rest of your Planning Commission to vet it and agree to it, then I think it doesn't have to go to council next
Part
week.
of what was to be done, and I apologize for interrupting, but part of what was supposed to be done was they want to use the HARB standards, but it was brought up that in a lot of the HARB standards, it says may or could instead of shall. So that what they wanted to do is on specific issues within the HARB standards to change the language or amend the language for their design criteria to replace may with shall. And this was something that they were trying to get a special meeting to go over. I don't know if they could get it lined up in time to get it on to next month's or next week's.
Jim Cherry, Planning Commission. So we've been working back and forth through email. There's been a couple of us, Matt Clapp, Thomas Doherty, and myself have been exchanging emails. So we may have that by the end of this week, and then should be able to incorporate that before the work session. But it is literally just tightening up and putting a little more teeth in. What we're looking for by allowing these residential developments is that they're done more consistent with the historic nature, like brick, stone, clapboard, that kind of stuff.
So to avoid what happened with the other presentation, I mean, if you get it done and get it to, which is tomorrow. Has to be posted.
Thursday, 4 p.m. Today's Wednesday.
Today is
Square
Wednesday.
kid, all hands together. Okay.
Does it make sense? And I know that there's some push to get this done, but
Sure. I mean, it's right there. We're just basically, we don't want a dense neighborhood of vinyl boxes. So that's really it.
or Tom Esty in my office, because I know he was working on this, and get him that language. We can get it done by tomorrow.
Yep.
If you're there. If not, it'll come back.
You can do it.
Sure. Yeah.
It's the work session agenda pending that they get you guys what you need by 4 p.m. tomorrow.
No problem.
And if the Phillies are on, you'll be up all night. So you just start typing, baby.
Crying myself to sleep. That's
Stop. No, we're winning tonight.
That's right. I don't even know.
Thanks for sitting out there waiting for this, Pete. He's been- All right, Daryl, yes, what would you like to say?
Every other business. Daryl Cook,
Wait, this other business? All right, other business.
Daryl Cook, 506 South Walnut Street. I did not receive a letter concerning the Westchester University Master Plan. Thank you.
Daryl did not receive a letter about those meetings that Westchester University had regarding the master plan. I think it was promoted in different ways. I don't know if they sent out letters or not. That might have been a good question. Oh, they did?
Shared with West Ocean who they were attending. Trying to incorporate who typically the borough then notices to. So I don't know.
So Daryl, you were at both of the meetings, so you found out about them, which is good.
Sean had contacted us to do the same mailing that we would for a zoning hearing board. And we did that for the entire way around the super block. So it met the criteria for whatever was in the zoning hearing board. And that was the mailing. We got a mailing list together for them and provided that to Brian. And I assume, I don't know, I assume that he did that with West Goshen also and would have sent out through them. But that was what our directive was. was to use the same that we would do for the normal public hearing, zoning hearing board notifications for the people around there, because, and they could have gone above it but they were supposed to do that at a minimum.
Okay, so I'd be curious because if that's within a certain number of feet of the super block, if that means only High Street really got letters and not Walnut Street, maybe that's what, I don't know. Can we double check and see if Daryl's?
We'll verify what the square footage or what the linear foot was from around that, but it was all the way down High, and it would have been 250 or 500 feet. I don't remember exactly which one, but that would be all the way out all along there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get a letter either. And I live a block away from Daryl. So, but I live a block away from the like east, right? So that I'm wondering if you, Daryl, were not in that radius. And that's what, it's either you weren't in the radius or US Post Office, you know, you'll get it in a month. But let's find out for sure. And then
I will verify it.
okay. The next question would be, are they the final neighborhood meetings? I mean, there were about 50, or are they planning on doing any others? And if they do plan on doing any others, and if we did not mail, maybe we need to mail.
I have no input, or I have no knowledge if they were going to do more. I knew of the two.
I think just as general practice, Dana and I were just talking about making sure that some of these like public meetings like this will be posted on our meeting calendar as well with information. I didn't even know about the Westchester one. So I think that we can work on that and some of the social media push just to give a wider reach to the public as well.
I do know that I was notified of the dates only by one of the individuals that was in that mailing list, sending me a copy of it saying, hey, just so you know, this is when the dates of them are.
Yeah, I think I saw it on Facebook postings like the Westchester. Yeah, you posted it and yeah, okay. All right, we'll do better. But you're in tune, so thank you for being there and finding your way, Daryl. Any other business? All right, I think we're adjourned at 8:35 p.m.